And the final story I'll share with you right now, before giving my thoughts and a couple plugs, this is actually from the ghost tour. So we did the ghost tours inside the building, and on occasion, very powerful things would happen to the group. And this one scared the living crap out of Ghost Guy George. I mentioned George Sanford before. So he was leading this tour, and he already felt very nervous to be inside that building. And he was so afraid that something would actually happen to him. And one of the things that he would do is when he was down in the basement vault, which hands down was the scariest room in the entire building, he didn't want to get closed in. So he was kind of claustrophobic. It was hard for him to go into that room, but he wanted to go in because it felt better for the group. He was a professional. So he would go against his own claustrophobia. He would go against his own fears. He would walk the group, even if it was a group of 25, which filled the room. He was on the opposite side of the group, so if something ever happened, it would be very difficult for him to get out. He'd have to run through everybody else. And of course, he's a gentleman, so he's not going to do that. He's going to let everybody get out to safety first. So he goes inside that room, and he's on the other side. He's got like over 20 people in front of him blocking his exit. And something tells him, I mean, he felt nervous that day. He looked at the door, and he saw the door is propped it open from the outside. And then there's a door stop underneath it to make sure it doesn't close. And something told him that that door could very well close and lock him in the room. Now, he didn't know that the lock was actually on the inside. I guess he didn't realize that. So it was unfounded, because even if it did lock, he could just unlock it and walk out. But just in case, he asked this lady in the back of the group, he's like, ma'am, sorry to disturb you in the tours. Like, can you just go to the door and just put your arms on it? So, just stand there and put your arms on the door so that if it starts to move, that she can hold it open. It won't close them in. And the young lady was very nice. She's like, of course. Yeah, not a problem. So she does that. George continues on with the story about the Dark Lady. That was the space where we told, I believe, the main legend. And he's telling that. And that's when the worst thing happens. He said it started out from the back of the group. Not the lady holding the door, but a woman near her started to scream. And then somebody else says it's closing. And then the rest of the group is freaking out. And George, he's like freaking out, trapped in the corner of the room, looking and watching the door slowly closing them in. It's getting darker and darker. And he's freaking out now, thinking, should I just run? Should I just run? And as all of the chaos is happening, as the door is about halfway shut, a man jumps forward and grabs it and pushes it open. So they all leave the room. Needless to say, they get out of that room, and they're standing in the hallway there in the basement. And George, he's stopped the tour at this point. He brings the young lady who was holding the door forward and says, what was happening on the other end there? Because she was so close to the door. And she said, I really don't know how to explain it. And she tried. She said, I was holding the door open. I had my arms out in front of me. And she said it almost felt like something like a forearm. Some type of pressure was on the top of my forearms, and they pushed my arms down to my side. She said she felt it. There was nobody there, but she felt that pressure that was so strong, it forced her arms down. So now the door stop had come loose, and the door was slowly closing towards her face. Now, this was a heavy door. If it hit her in the face, it would have hurt her. It could have really hurt her. And thank goodness that guy was there. He jumped forward and stopped it. But she said, yeah, no, that force on my arms, it just told me. And the fact that George knew, like he felt this when he was inside the room. He didn't know what that feeling was, but something was telling him that this energy was there and it was going to cause him problems. And he tried to stop it, but unfortunately it just made things worse. I mean, in that sense, it would have been better just to let the door shut and then just open it after the fact. But that's not, I mean, if you ever have a ghostly experience, what you plan for and what actually happens are definitely two completely different things.